Hello, this is Anton over at thehyperadvisor.com. I wanted to get into a video showing a blog post that I kind of did where I use a process to deploy Cloudstack and some of the components in an automated fashion using Ansible and node.js. So in this setup, you can see here I have 6 virtual machines. They all have Linux CentOS installed on them, and I'm using Fusion, VMware Fusion, but you could use other virtualization platforms or software in order to do something similar to this. The only key thing that needs to be done is for the KVM server here, where I'm going to install the Cloudstack agent and basically KVM libvirt. You have to enable the CPU extensions so that the KVM and libvirt will actually let you start libvirt. So I can go ahead and show that here in the settings and processor and memory. If we go to the advanced option, you can see here where I've enabled the hypervisor applications in this virtual machine. So that's just going to go ahead and expose the certain processor extension capabilities to the hypervisor that's going to be running here on this system. But other than that, all the other hosts don't really need this enabled. And if you were using physical hardware, anything that's been that's fairly new, in the last 4 or 5 years, these should be already enabled. If not, you may have to go to the BIOS if they were not enabled by default. So in this here example, I'm going to use virtual machines, but it does work on physical hardware as well, as long as you're on the same network and you can configure these. You can get to these systems from the network. Hopefully this demo goes without any issue. So sometimes you know how demos can go. I'm going to minimize the virtual machine windows here, and we'll go ahead and step through the process. I've already kind of outlined everything that needs to happen here in this document, so I'll run through it here and follow through it. One thing here, let's go ahead and validate. This is going to be one of the management server IPs. We cannot get to it, and this will be the main Ansible box or the main deployment server, and this here will be the Cloudstack server. Is already configured with the IP address of that system. We cannot connect to those, right? So those systems are not up and running. Let's go ahead and open up a terminal. I'm going to make this bigger. And let me see, where am I in the document here? So I already mentioned I will have X number of systems configured, an Ansible server or main deployment server where I'm going to put Ansible and Node. And then we're going to have 2 database servers, one's a primary, one's a replica, 2 web servers where we're going to install Cloudstack management, and also a KVM server where we're going to install the Cloudstack agents. I already mentioned doing the processor settings, so let's go ahead and log into the Ansible system here and SSH. And on this system, we're gonna, like I said, need to install Ansible and node.js. And to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste couple things here. Now this could actually be scripted as well, but in this case I wanted to just walk through the steps. So now that the EPL repository has been set up, I'm going to install Ansible. Now these have been installed with CentOS minimum, so depending on which CentOS ISO that you use to do your installation, or however you want to configure your installation of CentOS, you may have more or less packages or dependencies that needs to get installed when you're doing this. But since I have the minimum, there's a pretty good amount of packages that do need to get installed for these two. Now this one system here, what I'm calling the main deployment server, once you have these two components installed, you really don't have to install anything else on this system, and you only have to do it once. So once you get that installed on this one system, we could effectively deploy Cloudstack environments from this one system, as long as you're doing it on the same network, right? So if you go to another company, you know, ABC, and you have not deployed this piece yet, you would have to redeploy this, but it's pretty simple. We'll go ahead, you see the node.js stuff is getting installed. Now, what I like to do in this is go ahead and do a reboot. You don't have to, but I think, let me actually see. I don't think I installed, yeah, nothing, there was nothing on the kernel. I thought a new kernel may have gotten installed, but it doesn't look like it. So I'm going to skip the reboot. Hopefully that doesn't affect anything. But yeah, let me go ahead and copy over the deployment folder here. So I have a folder already set up with the node.js application, basically the web server, and also the Ansible playbooks that I'm going to use are also in this folder directory. In here as well, I don't think I actually stated it, but I have a Python script that basically overlays Ansible. Let me see, where am I? Alright, so that'll go ahead and copy over into the temp drive on this. This could be copied anywhere, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to put it in the temp drive just for the sake of this, running this test here. Now, let's go ahead and follow my steps here. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure Ansible is installed and also that node is installed. Okay, so we did get a prompt. So those two are installed. I want to go ahead and update the etc host files because I do not have DNS set up in this lab environment here. So what I'm going to do is copy this information so that I can actually communicate with these systems from this this Ansible or main deployment server. change there. 1, 2, 7. Alright, so if you had DNS and everything prepared up front, you would not have to do this. But because we're in a lab, I'm going to go ahead and get that done. Help safeguard. So let me go ahead and change to that directory. Copy stuff over. And the first thing I'm going to do is run the Python script that I set up, which basically prompts me for, or whoever runs it, for the things that you're going to need as far as the name or the IP of the database server, the replica server, database server if needed, and some other things. We'll just go ahead and walk through this so you can see it. So it'll ask you if you want to install MySQL. So it's basically requires this. So I guess asking the question is really mandatory that you do this, but I put the question in there. So if you're only going to install, say, the Cloudstack agent, then you would not actually need the MySQL server because you possibly already have that stuff set up. We'll go ahead and click yes in this case, and I've already outlined the names of the servers, so I'll just go ahead and use the names that I already have set up. And so Cloudstack DB server 1, okay, it prompts me if I want to install a replica server, and I will. That's going to be DB serve 2. Management servers, I'm going to install those as well, and those will be web serve 01 and 02. So that's comma delimited. You could only put 1 if you only need 1. In this case, I pre-set up 2, so I'll go ahead and install 2 of those. And the KVM server as well. So again, this is comma delimited. I only have 1 configured here, but you could have 2, 3, 4, whatever. And we'll hit enter. The template install I'm going to skip because I did not set up the NFS server. And then it goes ahead and it writes the Ansible host file and the vars file, and you can see it's prompted that was successful. I could just go ahead and run the installation right now, but I'm not going to. I want to go ahead and run the script manual piece here, so just to make sure that Ansible can communicate with these servers that I have out there first. So I click no, exited that, and if we walk through here, we can see, let's go ahead and cat the host file. So this is one way we can actually look at it. You can see it created this host file, and this host file is what we're going to use to run the installation, and it also created a vars file. So in its vars file, I did pre-populate a password for the cloud user, and also with the MySQL root user here. I'll probably add that to my Python script, so that for that as well, and then it can go ahead and populate in this file. And also I need these variables for master and slave for when we set up the replication. NFS server, and then NFS path is also in there. That's basically it there. So what I'm going to do is run this Ansible script here, and if everything goes alright on here, it should be good. Run Ansible. Basically with this here, I'm just going to gather the facts from all the systems in this host file. So we'll go ahead here, we're doing the switch, the K option. So it prompts me for the password. First time logging into these over SSH from this system, so it's going to ask me or prompt me here to type yes. Okay, so all those came back, no problem. We could go ahead and grep Ansible underscore hostname. And this should spit out also all the hosts that we've configured in that host file. All right. So with that done, I went through those steps. Basically, I can just go ahead and run the installation from here, where I said no up front. There's an option to do the installation with using the I, and this should go ahead and run all the playbooks that are needed, and it'll use the host file that we created with the Python script, and also the variables file that was created from the Python script as well, that was configured here. Alright, so at first it starts the node.js web server that I have set there, and that is running, as we can see here, on this local host on port 3000. Go ahead and put in the password here for Ansible. So it starts gathering all the facts, and then effectively go through the playbooks that it needs to run. The playbooks that are configured, so I have a playbook to create the repo file. This will be used because I set up a web server. As I mentioned, I have a node.js web server running, and that's going to be used for the Cloudstack repository, because the packages are really large for Cloudstack. So I'm having those local in the same environment on that LAN that the Cloudstack systems are going to be on, so that when we're doing the installation, it doesn't take as long as it would as if you're pulling those down from the internet. Then we're going to create a host file, or update the host file on all those systems, so that every system is added into the host files, mainly one, because DNS is not set up in this environment, and I'm making an assumption that DNS won't be configured in an environment when I'm doing this deployment. So all the systems can talk to each other back and forth when I'm setting up and configuring things in the environment, so I won't have any issues there. And then there's a MySQL server install, basic. It installs MySQL, right? And of course, set up some certain parameters, etc., that are needed. And then the Cloudstack management deployment playbook installs Cloudstack management servers. MySQL replication setup, that there will go ahead and set up replication if required. So if we had said no in the options when we were prompted, this would not obviously get set up, but I did it just because I want to show that the replication can be set up, so that you have a more high available Cloudstack environment set up here on the management server. And also it'll install the Cloudstack agent with KVM, so your hypervisor, the hypervisor getting deployed here will be with KVM. And the option that we actually said no to was installing the system templates, but this could be installed after the fact as well. All of these actually can be run after the fact, so if you need to do something separate from what this script is kind of forcing you into, I guess, you could just go in and run Ansible commands and run the playbooks separately. But the use of my Python script is actually to get out of the process of running each of these individually, right? And I didn't run the template installation also in this environment because I haven't set up a NFS server. And that's pretty much it. So one thing to point out, which I put in here, is that this will not configure the host, the KVM host or the Cloudstack agents into Cloudstack. So when we're done here, what's going to happen is the database servers will be set up and configured. The web servers, which has the Cloudstack management software, there are servers running on it, will be set up, and the one KVM host will be set up. Now, when all the processes run, or the playbooks run here, the Cloudstack web server, we can go to it, we can log in, and from that point we could manually add the KVM host or the Cloudstack agent, however you want to say it, by going through the wizard and adding in the zones and the pods and the clusters, etc., however we want to, right? There's so many variables or different ways that you can configure those. I did not make that a part of this initial piece here, but that could be done after the fact, right? So if we look here, we can see we're at the Cloudstack KVM playbook. So right now it's installing Cloudstack. It's already went through all the other components. The KVM host is the last piece in here. Sometimes I get an error message on the Cloudstack installation here. Sometimes I have to run it twice, but typically it goes and installs fine. And in this case, if it does fail on me, again, we're in a lab. Not everything always works, but in order to get around it, I can just go into the command line or run that playbook manually, and everything will work fine, typically. So this should be done shortly. Alright, so everything did install fine there. Usually if the packages install, I don't have any problems with this, so that's good. Go ahead and VMware Fusion wants its password because this VM is trying to access the network. This piece is taking a little bit, so this one's running the Cloudstack configuration. That typically takes a little bit. Now we can see everything finished. I did not run a timer on this, but we can look at the video and see when I started this. Usually about, I would say, maybe 10 minutes or less. It all depends on how many servers you're installing, how fast your network is, and how fast the systems are that you're deploying to, right? but this was pretty easy. It shows the power of automation, and I'll probably get into more details on the playbooks and what's configured in Node, how they're configured. But right now, I have not really cleaned them up for reuse or showing to anyone. So yeah, well, I may clean those up and then say, hey, this is how the playbooks look. But in general, you got a gist of what the playbooks, at a high level, what playbooks I have here in place and what they're doing, right? With that said and done, these are done. So on the Ansible server, what I've done as well is it runs a web service, and it'll, I did put some instructions here on how to use it. Basically, some of the things that you put in and what the, I'm calling the Cloudstack deploy script here does. And effectively, I could actually, or someone could use the web instead of answering the questions that I had in there. You can run the Python start the -s switch, and that will just start the server. The lowercase s, the capital S will stop the server. So if we go in here, you'll see that this is dead again. Run the lowercase s. I'll go ahead and start the server. We're in there, and we could effectively use this web piece to create that host file and the var files. So if we go into the Cloudstack management server, that now should be up and running. Where I want to go, let me log into sh root cld stk db serve 02. So this would be the replica server. And what I just want to show here is that the replication is set up and working. Root -p, and I think we said ss -d. Don't remember. Vars and 1 2 3 4. All right, 1 2 3 4. It's really late for me, man. I'm tired. So I know I've said probably 1,000 times. Bear with me here. Let's go ahead and use cloud. And start from user. All right, let me stretch this out. We should have 2 users by default in here. All right, so we got system and admin in here. We'll come over here. Let me refresh this page again. Log in. Now, what's my IP address? Ping db serve 2. Actually, what I want is web 02. Okay. I'm actually hitting the secondary. This probably shouldn't matter, but hit 1. Here. Alright, so 01 logged in. Let me show doing a user account. I'll add a new user account. And I'll just call this test. Everything's test at test.com. Test. And it's just a user. Now this is just to show that the replication is working on this box. So the account created fine. Let's do this again, and we're on we're on O2, which is the replica box, and we're set up there, so that works fine. Exit out of there, and that's basically it. There's some things that we can add to this, but as far as the basic setup, deployment, getting everything installed with the replication, the foundational components here, it can be done and deployed auto-magically using Ansible. So this is showing Cloudstack and Ansible. Hope you liked the video, and if you do, go ahead and like it and visit my site over at thehyperadvisor.com. Good night, peoples.